Good morning from beautiful Brisbane, Australia. How are you this morning? We've arrived at Monday morning already, and how are you going? Nick and I actually did our trauma-informed movement class this morning, and we really suffered for a Monday morning. It was challenging, to say the least. But we're here, and today I want to talk to you about loneliness. And in a world where we're the most connected we've ever been, we're also the most loneliest we've ever been. And today I want to be able to give you some answers to questions that I've been asked. I want to give you different ways to look at loneliness. And I also want to have that awareness happening that it's not cut and dried. There's many layers to loneliness. Sometimes it comes into play because we have to, this is to line it up with complex Ptsd or trauma that you've experienced in your life. It can be lined up with attachment challenges that we have. So if we've got disorganised attachment, then we need to work through the attachment issues that come in, and they are pretty significant about how they impact how we view life and how loneliness comes up around that. They can be linked to our neurobiology, and you can go and watch videos that I've done on triggers and anything to do with neurobiology, and we know that when the fear trigger happens, the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex are not connected. The limbic system goes into fight, flight, freeze mode. And when we are in that mode, we can feel very, very alone. And it can have us believing that we need to isolate. It can have us believing that no one will understand what we're going through. It has us acting out in that isolation because we feel unsafe to interact with the world. And that's often why our Facebook group is a really good place to start, because then we can see that we can be emotionally safe. So when we've been triggered too, we can feel out of control and we're trying to control things. But in between the control and out of control, we can feel very alone if we don't understand what's happening at that neurobiological level, and that there are ways that we can begin to take back control and take back the focus. It's not control, it's we can begin to take back the focus of where we're headed instead of where our neurobiology, physiology wants to drive us or wants to have us believe we need to be, because it brings up anything around the belief that we need to be safe. If you know you're safe, then we're going to have to do work. We do interpersonal work, so take the information to your therapist or to your trauma coach and do the interpersonal work in order that you can line up what's happening for you externally, internally, and get back to being connected externally to people around you, to life around you, and connected internally, so connected to who I am, all right, and where I'm going. Now, one of the greatest factors that we can begin to do to overcome that deep sense of loneliness is begin to connect to other people in a safe way. So I personally run an emotionally safe recovery group on Facebook because we need that connection. And when I first started, I couldn't even talk, okay, so I couldn't talk like I'm talking to you now. So the only way I could connect to other people was online. So we can see from that how powerful it is because I could sit there and I could think and work out or go to the thesaurus and look for the words that I'm trying to think of. Okay, so all my memory banks were shut down around words. So this is how we can begin to connect in a safe way and in a way where we can take our time. So it depends what stage of recovery you're at as well. For me, I'm I'm well and truly moving from recovery into remission. And I'm learning how to refute the thoughts that say that are not just negative, but they're not healthy beliefs to have. So from trauma, we can believe that the whole world is against us or out to get us or doesn't want to know us. We can believe people are thinking about us more than they actually are. And this is all driven from the deep need. There's a real primitive need within us to be safe. Okay? If you have further questions about that, feel welcome to ask at any time, because it can be a lot to wrap our head around. But what do we do when we feel that real ache, that real void in our chest? Part of that is that we have to look at where we're disconnecting, where we can connect, but where we can connect with safety and how we can recognise safe people. Part of that also is our spiritual journey. Our spiritual journey comes into helping fill the void. Another factor that helps fill that void is having a focus of what we want to achieve in life. Okay? So I have a plan and a purpose of what I'm going to do with my life and what fills me up, what makes me feel full of life. Okay? So when I do that, and the steps to getting there can be things like when other people are celebrating like an engagement or a marriage or a birth of a baby or a new job, a new direction in life, when they've achieved, they've reached a place where they've made achievements in their life. Oh, study, when they've got through their study, bought a new car. These are all things that we may not be able to do when we're going through complex trauma and the loneliness. But what we do to fill that void inside is begin to be genuinely happy for people. So just say that you've really wanted, all your life, you really, really wanted to have a really healthy relationship, okay? And it's just never worked out. And I'll be the first to put my hand up and say, yeah, that's me too. That's one of the things that I really wanted a few decades ago to happen. But in order to fill the void now, when people are celebrating, I am genuinely happy from my heart for them. And then if something else comes up that I need to deal with, then I will go and sit down with people that I can talk to, that I know, like and trust, and they will help me understand what it is that I can't see. Alright, there's always 20% of ourselves we can't see, and we need to be willing to examine that. So, what were our questions around? Now remember, these are all just the strategies and concepts, and we need to be able to go, okay, this is where I'm at for me, and this is where I want to be. Alright, so what do I need to build into my life? So I know one person who is close to my heart. They're going through their recovery. They're not at the stage where they can study, but their goal is to study to help others. So they're very aware of seeing their therapists. They reach out to other people. They're connecting in with other people in life. And they're learning to turn their hard attitude around as well. And they're finding that the more they fill their life with where they're going, the less the loneliness tries to get hold of them. And I found the same too. I lived in denial that I was lonely for a very long time, simply because I had too many other things, like, being able to take care of myself was a focus for a long time. But I don't have that loneliness anymore because I know that I'm filled with the passion of the plan and purpose of where I want to go with my life. And that, it's like saying everything else will be added once I'm full and overflowing with where I'm going with my life, okay? Now, let's just grab hold of some questions here for you. Okay, so I was asked, what's the difference between alone and lonely? We can be in a group of people and be the loneliest we've ever felt. So we're not alone, we're not on our own, okay, but we are lonely, because one of the things that we crave as humans is to be fully known and fully accepted, okay? And if that's not happening, then we are going to feel dreadfully lonely, all right? But again, we can come back to filling our own life and getting on with it, and then being around people that actually genuinely care, right? When we've had trauma in our life, we tend to be a lot more introspective and deeper than perhaps the average Yogi Bear, and that's okay. It's our journey, and so you can see the difference between loneliness and alone. And we can be alone in our own home and not be lonely, be filled to capacity and overflowing of where we're going, what we're doing, and loneliness doesn't even enter into the picture. Okay? So we've just been through what fills the gap inside of us, and one of the most important things is not to settle, especially in personal relationships. Don't settle. But not only don't settle, if you've had relationships, be they friendships or a relationship in the past that hasn't worked, then what you need to do is be able to say, okay, I want to learn absolutely everything I can about how to have a healthy relationship, in order that, one, I'm equipped to have a healthy relationship, but I also want to know the factors that come into it so I can identify if somebody is not living in a healthy, productive way. Two of the key things that you want to look for in a relationship is that when there's anger, misunderstanding, that both of you are willing to sit down and have the conversation, have the tough conversation, and communicate through it. And it can be done online as well. And the other thing is, make sure the person's safe, okay? And also that they've got a focus of what they want out of life, where they're going, how they're building their life, because otherwise, if they're not building their life, they're going to start relying on you to be the one that fills their gap, and you can't do that. That goes into codependence, into narcissism, and all sorts of ugly stuff, and you don't want to do that, okay? Boundaries in friendships and relationships, well, we do that from understanding what a safe person is, understanding what a healthy relationship is, and a healthy relationship definitely involves boundaries and definitely involves being able to navigate the tough times. It's in the tough times, it's when we come together, when the glue actually happens and we stick together, be that in friendships or personal relationships. It's the glue that keeps us together, that when we work through the tough stuff together, right? And you create memories. Oh, we navigated that, and then long term, sometimes we're actually able to laugh at what we navigated, and we did it together. And I do this in my personal relationships, as in friendships. We can have disagreements, but we work through it bit by bit by bit till we understand each other, all right? And that's how you create healthy boundaries. You won't be able to have healthy boundaries unless you both communicate. If you're with somebody who won't communicate, then you don't stand a chance of having a healthy relationship, because it takes two. Always takes two to be communicating. And if there's no communication, you're going to feel lonely, and you don't want that, all right? I was asked about the love we deserve. Before, I want you to think about it this way. Instead of thinking about what we deserve, get your thoughts, get your mind and your heart wrapped around giving out the love you deserve first, all right? And getting on track for where you're going and what fills your heart, what gives you passion in life. And that can build into our life. It's not something that happens overnight. contrary to popular opinion. It's something that we build into our life one day at a time. And that way, as we feel ourselves, the more that we do feel ourselves, the greater the chances are that we're going to meet somebody else who feels themselves as well. Okay? Don't try and force something just because you're lonely, otherwise it will be the unhealthiest relationship you ever have. How do we find ourselves after abuse? That comes down to attachment and working through who I am, and we often do that. This is a very, very short version. We do that by recognising that how I'm acting, how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling is not who I am. Alright, so this morning in the trauma-informed movement class, it took me 20 minutes to get my mind focused on my breath, because the thoughts just wanted to take over. And it's like, no, I want to be focused in who I am and where I'm going. So we have to have that dream intact as well. This is what I dream of, and I want to be disciplined in achieving that dream, even if the dream takes longer than I can imagine. So imagine if at one stage I just said, well, I can't see how I could ever walk, talk, speak, exert again, or take care of myself again, then that's the space I would have lived in. Whereas my dream was that I would be able to walk, talk, live again and take care of myself again. So when we keep that dream alive, then we start also looking for, how can I go about this? How can I implement those changes into my life as well? And as we do that, we are actually reinforcing who we are instead of who we had to become to navigate childhood trauma. Alright? There's a big difference. And how do we fill our love cup healthily? It's, I always struggle when people say, you've got to love yourself. I really do. It's like, I do. It's not a concept that I find easy to wrap my head around, but it is a concept that I do find it easier in filling my love cup in a far more healthy manner. Okay, I've shown you this before, but I just want to show you. So for me, filling my love cup means that I do my work to make sure that my amygdala and prefrontal cortex get used to working together instead of my brain being triggered into anxiety and depression. But I also do the self-awareness work of what keeps me from being whole. Alright, now this part of the brain hooks into both the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, and it's called the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, alright? And it's the part of us where we need to be aware. And when we do that and we choose to eradicate things from our life that are unhealthy, we do then build into our life a very healthy love, not just for ourselves but for others. But we build that through experiences. So you're not going to be able to build that sitting on your lounge or staying in bed for forever. It just won't. We've got to get out in life and have experiences. We need to choose to build different strategies around what we're going to do. And healing from trauma is interpersonal. So healing from the loneliness is going to be interpersonal as well. And it's challenging because, of course, our brain says, no, don't go there. And yet we have to. We need to, in order to move from recovery into remission. I hope that's helped today. Have a gorgeous day in the Southern Hemisphere and a wonderful evening in the Northern Hemisphere, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.